So first off, everyone, thank you so much and welcome to this edition of TBM Tuesday. I, as always, am your host, Lindsay Gates. I am the head of operations for the TBM Council. So thank you so much for attending. Today, we've got two great guests with us. We have Matt Temple and then Powell Latimer, who is also from my team. I'll let them each do a brief introduction. So Matt, if you'd like to introduce yourself and let them know a little bit about your background and who you are, that would be great.
Sure. So I'm Matt Temple. I'm a principal consultant here at Infosys. I've been practicing TBM since about early 2000s or so. Joined the standards committee a few years back. Have been an active participant in the TBM community. You may even see my little avatar on occasion that reads off as being a TBM scientist. So if you'd like to bounce any ideas off of me, you're welcome to find me on community or link up with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And Powell, if you'd like to do an introduction about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Powell Latimer, as Lindsay said. I think my actual title is Manager of Market Research and Analytics at the TBM Council. So I'm an employee of the council here. I'm the one who was in charge of putting together the State of TBM this year and collecting data for it. So running all of our internal research efforts from a data perspective. Before I was here, I've been here since I think July of last year. So before that, I was running a data practice for a consultancy in the healthcare space. So I was really excited to come here and try to build something fun from a research perspective, and look forward again to engaging with all of you moving forward. You can, much similar to Matt, you can find me on LinkedIn or also on communities as well.
Awesome. Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and get into the topics today. So we're discussing two things with our guests. One, we're going to talk about the state of TBM. So all of the information about what are the themes, what are the trends, what do we hear? The other piece we're going to go into more of a deep dive is, as many of you all have seen, we have updated our framework and taxonomy. So the series for TBM Tuesday going forward, each quarter we're going to be focused on a particular area, and this quarter we're focusing on the TBM Foundations. And so Matt Temple is going to be talking to us about the foundations, what they are, why we chose that particular information. He is a part of our Standards Advisory Board. So that is the group that puts together all the information, the research, and approves what goes into the TBM taxonomy. So he's going to be a great resource to ask some questions. And at the end, as always, we have time to ask any questions that you have. I'll be moderating the chat, so please feel free to put the information in. And so with that, I will head over to Powell. So Powell, State of TBM. Can you tell me a little bit about what were the findings? What did we see? What did we learn?
Of course I can. I want to start off just level setting real quick. The one thing that we did differently this year with State of TBM, in the past, historically, that survey has really focused on the C-suite executives of kind of across the industry and really try to target those. This year, we want to do something a little different. So we really focused on the TBM practitioner community. So focusing on the folks that are there rather than going out and trying to find 500 CEOs or CXOs or CIOs. I really thought that was interesting because we wanted to see kind of where our community was and what the people actually doing TBM are doing. Of course, we got some C-suite folks as well, but that allowed us to get a really interesting slice of what TBM practitioners are doing and additionally, what makes a successful TBM practice and what differentiates that from a less successful TBM practice. I thought those things were really cool, but of course, I'm the research and data person, so I always think the data is fun. Of course, that report is available for anyone in the community to go look at in its full entirety, but summarizing, there's two real things that came out of that we think is really interesting. The first is a bit of a storyline that is developing that I'm really excited to try to tease out over the next months, years, however long that takes, which is that TBM seems to help build a virtuous upward cycle of just good quality data, and so trust and access within your organization. What that means is typically once you those who've implemented TBM tend to see better quality data, and actually data that you can trust in your organization. And showing that data that you trust seems to get more access to more data. You can then have more purview and more impact to better show the value of your tech investments across your organization as a kind of a natural outgrowth of having a good TBM practice. I think that's pretty cool, and I'm really excited to kind of dig more into how that happens and the kind of the mechanics of that. Some of those things sound like duh obvious. That's what TBM is supposed to do, but it's cool to see that's how things are working and percolating up for TBM practices over time, and those in higher levels of maturity.
And I was on that point. Is that something that happened immediately when they started implementing TBM, or is it something that takes a little bit of time?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's the kind of like the second piece of this, which is we looked at what made a successful TBM practice, what differentiates TBM practice that is crushing it versus TBM practice that's kind of in the wilderness and people are struggling with. And there were really three things that stood out about that, and one of them is exactly what you're talking about, Lindsay. One of them is time. The first thing we found is that most folks in the first 12 months don't see, it takes 12 months to really start to see the meaningful impact of a TBM practice. There are other factors, of course, involved with that, but that first 12 months, it does seem like it just takes a little bit to get the ball rolling. Some of that is understandable. A lot of TBM practices are in giant, unwieldy, multinational corporations that are huge. Even the IT department of one of those is going to be just going to be like a city unto itself. So that's going to take some time to turn the Titanic, right? Like it's going to take a minute to get some impact there. So that's one thing that really differentiates that TBM practice. The other two are staffing your TBM office. We saw some folks that reported kind of an ad hoc TBM practice, like that. Basically, we staff our TBM office in an ad hoc fashion, or kind of like grabbing people here and there. Or I run TBM, but I'm also doing 4 or 5 other jobs, and I've got this title that's kind of amalgamous across the organization. I'm sure that everyone who works at big organizations knows that sometimes your title just kind of expands and you get responsibilities. However, not staffing a TBM office, you don't really, people that didn't staff it full time with at least some dedicated staff didn't really see any progress, was what they're reporting. Now that's a small cohort of people, at least in our survey, but it was interesting that the more dedicated individuals or FTEs that you are putting into your TBM practice, the business impact that you see kind of scales exponentially, right? So if you have like one to 5 people, you've got a pretty good impact, and that then you've got twice or 3 times the impact if you have 6 or more folks in your TBM office. That was so staff your office, give it some time. The third thing that we found is folks that had a more mature TBM model. And what that really means is get beyond just towers and cost pools. If you've got more things, if your model has gone beyond that into kind of the products and lines of services there, you're able to get a little bit more value, or substantially more value, about twice the value out of your TBM practice. So when we say value, we're talking about, we asked a bunch of questions about like what business impact over the last 1 to 2 years. Aggregating those together gives us a really good indicator for kind of business impact as a kind of idea. So those 3 things, staffing your office, giving it some time, and maturing your model, really help magnify the impact that you see from your TBM office. And that's kind of what we saw that differentiates successful versus non-successful TBM practices.
Awesome. And I think that leads very nicely into Matt Temple. So Matt, now going into the actual foundations of TBM, can you talk a little bit about, I would even just say, the process that you all put together to come up with the foundations and what that implies?
Sure. Sure. So we looked at the foundations as being key and critical to the success of how TBM comes about. These elements were viewed as being factors in any organization, but we needed a way to articulate what allowed TBM to build on top of existing methods and roles there for the benefit of building out a TBM program within your organization. Let me just pull up my notes here real quick. So these foundational areas were there to ensure the transparency, the efficiency, as well as the strategic decision-making capabilities that TBM allows for. These areas such as data, tools, methods, roles, and change were thought through after multiple iterations. There are obviously other areas that you can pull in that may be foundational to your own TBM program, as well as your own solution in terms of the tool that you select. But these we felt as a TBM standards committee were key and necessary for the success. So for data, I'll just make mention about why we picked each one of these briefly, and then I'll cave for some questions before marching on elsewhere. So for data, we're talking about accurate and comprehensive, well-structured data that's essential for TBM. It's not that you need to wait for perfect data, and you don't need to get every piece of data for a mature organization running a TBM program. If you wait for that moment, you're going to be passing many, many cycles of benefit where you could have at least pivoted towards those areas that have good enough data to start making those decisions. So data is providing the foundation for meaningful insights. It's performance tracking, informed decision-making also comes out of this as well. But it's across financial and operational dimensions. I want to emphasize too that this is not about a financial type solution. This is not about only engaging your financial team. This is an operational benefit as well. Going over to tools, TBM relies on technology solutions that automate data aggregation. Many of the flagship products out there that support TBM have tools that allow you to bring in that data into their native tool set already. But again, if you don't have that, you're likely going to have to spin up your own solution and being able to do so. It also provides for enabling analytics and supporting visualization. All of this ensures leaders are having real-time actionable intelligence for optimizing the technology investments and operations. Depending on what your solution is and how it's set up in terms of a tool set, you may not get that real-time benefit. That does take some effort. So just be mindful and prepared on that front that this is not to be seen as being a cloud type solution that you would normally see on, say, the FinOps side, where a lot of things are pretty near to real time. Depending on the solution that you employ, your tool may get pretty close to real time, but based on my experience, I wouldn't expect that you're going to be seeing that near real-time benefit as you normally would see on, say, the FinOps side. And that's just really because of the nature of the systems and processes involved in a typical TBM solution. We're talking about a far more inclusive type of solution where we're looking at the entire technology stack. We're not just looking in one area like FinOps would, where it's just looking into that cloud space. Methods is our next area. So we're talking about standardized frameworks and best practices to drive consistency in how TBM is implemented. This allows for organizations to measure themselves, benchmark against other industry peers, or just simply industry as a whole, and improve technology value through delivery and alignment with business goals. You can also leverage alignment with capabilities and other value drivers that may not necessarily be tied to organizational goals. Roles, these are dedicated TBM roles, such as TBM analysts and leaders, but also highlights the need for roles elsewhere throughout the organization. So this ensures accountability. It also brings attention to the expertise needed in the area, not again in TBM only, but also in the expertise needed in other spaces too that help to partner and complement one another. This also leads to the ability to translate those insights into strategic actions that enhance operational and financial performance of that organization. And then lastly, change. We, as a standards committee, talked a little bit about whether or not we should call out organizational change management or just reference OCM, or be a bit more generic in the sense of change so that it includes OCM plus the other change elements that are needed for success. So for TBM to be transformational, it requires cultural and organizational change, making OCM crucial to driving adoption, aligning stakeholders, and embedding TBM practices into daily operations for sustained impact. So often in my experience, I see a lot of attempts at TBM reducing or overlooking the importance of OCM and only focusing their efforts on FTEs needed to support the tool, but ignoring the need for the OCM and other change elements. And when that happens, far too often I see a TBM effort failing or having to relaunch, having to miss all that opportunity for the successes that TBM brings to the table for so many months or sometimes even years of just trying to spin around, trying to figure out a way to get TBM to be successful for your organization. So please, when considering your own TBM program, definitely be very conscious and careful in the intentful thought of bringing your OCM partners and change management partners into play as well.
So Matt, when we talk about foundations, you listed several different areas. Is there a particular space that the practitioner is supposed to focus on first? Or are, what's kind of the process as they dive into the foundations of how do you best sort of describe a way, or is it a pick and choose approach?
I feel that each organization may need to figure out their best path forward. I've felt that at times when I've come in with a prescriptive, very kind of tight way of doing things, that it tends to also create too many hurdles and political consequences that need to be overcome when performing some upfront executive buy-in and use case analysis and establishing what the roadmap would look like is far more beneficial. So being careful and intentful in your approach to TBM and making sure that those key stakeholders and leaders, especially your sponsors, to also take benefit of the executive primer, at least, if not the executive certification that's available through the TBM Council's educational offerings.
And as we are looking at the foundations and details, will the standards community be providing additional context, information, details, and data behind each one of these foundational levels?
Yes. So one of the main areas we're focusing on as a standards committee, starting this year and going forward, is to improve our output of research and guidance to adopting TBM, so that it's not just some simple, here's the TBM taxonomy and the model, and we hope that you do the best that you can. We're going to come out with some beneficial tie-ins and use cases and case studies that go along with each area that we're highlighting within the revised one-pager and within the revised conceptual and TBM models that are out there. Of course, not stepping too much on the toes of the various tool developers out there, but certainly helping to highlight where folks new to TBM, as well as those who are seasoned, of course, to maybe rethink how TBM can benefit their organization, and maybe even to reassess whether or not they are in fact following TBM and taking TBM to the best levels possible for their organization. Far too often, I also see many organizations claim to be practicing TBM, and really all they're doing is leveraging what they had before and transitioning it into one of the many tools that are out there. And it's not really TBM in that sense.
That makes sense. And then another call out, so you had mentioned the standards and case studies. So Powell, are you currently, I think I understand that you're doing some case studies and reviewing from the award winners that you guys are going to be putting out later this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think we have at least 4 of them basically finalized right now. Working on a couple additional ones. And those are all going to be really, we've tried really hard to tie those wherever possible to some of those foundations that Matt just mentioned. Because a lot of them did end up kind of, organically or intentionally in their submissions, or organically once we talk to them, to have some really interesting elements there. And so hopefully there will be some good themes and examples to kind of pull from once those case studies come out.
Yep. Awesome. No, I'm looking forward to that. It's always great to see what the award winners did, how they did that, and other ways. Before I open it up to questions, Matt, is there any sort of closing statements that you would like to say about foundations, details, or just some advice that you would like to give to our fellow community members?
I would like to emphasize that TBM isn't just about a financial solution. There's a lot of financial elements to TBM, but it should be viewed as a discipline that unifies technology, business, and finance together. And while it provides financial clarity, it extends beyond cost management by delivering authoritative insights into operational efficiency, resource allocation, and business alignment. So we're not just talking about finance here. There's a lot of factors that your finance teams are going to provide and assist with, but this is a solution, a benefit to the entire organization across all verticals and all horizontals throughout your organization, not just within your technology organization. Remember, this is about business, finance, and tech all coming together at the same table. So this is a holistic approach that ensures technology organizations operate with greater agility, resilience, and strategic impact.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I love that. It's so many times too, people forget it's all those different groups coming together, and everybody needs to try to understand what each other is doing so that you can provide the best output and data. So I'm going to open it up for any questions. I've got the chat. I don't think, Talia, are they able to come offline if they want to ask a question? I'm not in charge of any of the actual tech support.
Yeah, they should be. Yeah, they should be able to come off.
So if we have any questions, this is a great opportunity for you guys to ask anything about sort of how that you get your foundation started, best practices, what you want to hear about from the state of TBM. So any questions? Will it be in the chat? I'm assuming.
Yes. We have a question.
Okay, so we've got, would be interested in hearing some success stories. So maybe Matt, do you want to provide any, or even Powell, some of the success stories that you heard from the case study winners?
Yeah, I can start with a few case study. Forgive me, I've just been in the weeds with those, so I've got some knowledge. There are a couple. I'll save the real specific details there, but I think one thing we have good example. There's 2 things we have good examples for with case studies, or 2 themes from case studies at least I've noticed, and you'll see some of that in ideally in what I've written. The first is that there's a lot of cool stuff that you can add on to a good TBM model. So there's really interesting stuff you can use to kind of augment your TBM model with really cool So like folks that added some really cool, there's some folks from UK that add some really cool sustainability metrics to their TBM model. There's some folks in banking that added some really cool, kind of brought in some of the like the agile data sets into their TB model and mix those two things together. Those are excellent examples of kind of building on top of those foundations. To Matt's earlier point about kind of like getting the data you need and rolling with it, I think there are 2 case studies that really back that up, where 2 folks in banking, I'm not going to name them because I want to make, we haven't gotten permission, full legal permission from them to like share all the details yet. So forgive me, I'm putting the cart before the horse. But 2 folks from banking that are some of our award winners did were good examples of this, where they either started organically in like a side offshoot department and built out from there and got what they needed and got basically were aggressively, I don't want to say aggressively wrong, but like were put data in front of stakeholders, and the stakeholders said, hey, that's not right. We got to get you more data. And they said, yes, please give us more data. We need that information to actually make the impact that you want. So folks building on top of, or folks like kind of starting with like good enough. We have some really good examples there in the financial industry. And then one that kind of started in like an offshoot department and built out from good impacts in a small department and kind of organically grew. And, you know, the award submission looks like super impressive with all the stuff that they were able to accomplish, but it started really small. This is like kind of an organic outgrowth of implementing something. Like it doesn't have to be everything. It's good enough. And we got a little win here and then another little win a few months later, and it kept building out of that. Rudolph, I don't know if that answers your question specifically. I promise there'll be more detail in the case studies. I just don't want to speak before everyone's legal department has to say yes before we get all the details there.
Yeah, we don't want any of that. I've got also, are you seeing any differences in approaches by various industry verticals?
I've seen industries that are more appreciative of processes be more successful at TBM. And those types of industries that clearly come to mind immediately to me is the banking industry. Mainly because they're required to have such rich processes that are well documented. The very nature and DNA within those types of organizations, even government organizations too, are extremely successful in being able to bring in TBM, especially those that are well informed about what TBM is and understand that it's not just about a tool, and position the right people on the right level of resources to support the program and the tool set.
So I've got one more. So is there an example of TBM maturity assessments looking to understand core capabilities need to successfully implement TBM practices, a level 1 to 5 maturity? So one, Mike, we do have on TBM Connect, which you do need to be a member, but there is currently a maturity assessment right now available that you can take. It's in our resource center. The other thing as well is we are going to be putting together some use cases. I know that the research and the standards team, because I've already seen some of it, has put together what are basically from you're starting to your mature, oh, I can't talk anymore. So we are putting together use cases that's going to be coming out later this year. All right, so I think we're at, we will share that link, and it's, oh, actually, if you just go to become a member there, oh, well, thank you. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to like do stuff that I don't need to be doing. But anyways, so a big thank you to my guests, Powell and Matt. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for everyone attending. We will have, again, another TBM Tuesday next week, the 18th. We'll be talking about roles and responsibilities. So if you're looking how to stand up your TBM office, where to go, what to do, please join us next Tuesday. So thank you guys so much. Bye.